So imagine you're about to buy something and you don't even know how much it costs, but it's about to happen. You're even more screwed because somehow you don't even know how much money you have and you don't even know how much money you make. And the crazy thing is, that's pretty much the situation we're all in when we're playing Fortnite Save the World and making traps. Don't worry, I'm here to help figure this out for you. Trust me, I'm a founder. Hello, survivors. I'm your host, King Dogspeed, and welcome to this episode of Fortnite Save the World. I usually have a lot of trouble just making traps that I want because I'm always running out of materials. I wanted to look into it to see if there's something I can do about it because I did figure out what to do in a different video game and I tried to apply something like that here. I spent 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 25 seconds across 10 different PL140 zones. And I performed a lateral scan of the Save the World economy. I always felt like I was running out of materials and I never have enough to craft all the traps that I want. My goal was just to stop guessing how much a trap costs, not just by the materials, but what they're actually worth. And I needed a way to quantify the value of each trap. Essentially, I wanted to find out what the price tag before I make them. I came up with a way to measure the value of traps and ingredients. There is just one resource that everyone actually has in common, and that is time, or the time that you spend playing or farming resources. So I gave a name for this currency of time, the real life seconds. That is the seconds for economic costs, or SEC seconds. This is how we can figure out how much something costs, what the value of what you own is total with what you own, and how much your income is, how fast you can farm things before you can actually make that purchase. When I started playing Ark Survival Evolved back in 2015, and I really wanted to use guns. There's dinosaurs, it's survival. I thought it would be really cool. Everybody told me, don't bother. Guns are not worth it. It's just going to be expensive. They don't do a lot of damage to dinos. And you're going to spend way more time crafting the materials for ammunition, repair costs. It is so not worth it. Don't even try. And I was like, are you sure about that? Really? So I decided that I need to figure out if that's actually true. And to do that, I needed to figure out how expensive a gun is or a bullet is. So I made a spreadsheet. This one from a long time ago. So what I did is I took every single projectile gun that we had at the time, which is for like slingshots to bows to crossbows to even pistols and shotguns. I needed to figure out how expensive a bullet is. So what I did was I went and I collected each of the materials that were in the game, like, you know, metal and stone and obsidian and fiber and chitin and all sorts of stuff. And as I did that, I recorded how long it took me to collect everything and how many I ended up getting. And so if I got a lot of materials in a short amount of time, I consider that as cheap. And even if I spent a long time farming and looking for stuff and I only got a few of them, I will consider that very expensive. So it will take me a lot of seconds in order to collect a material. And some of the materials require only a few seconds for me to go looking around and finding them. So with that, I was able to figure out how many seconds each of the materials cost. And then I figured out, in order to make a stone arrow or a bullet, how many of those each of the materials are necessary to craft them. And then I put the two together to see the total amount of seconds it will take in order to craft a bullet or an arrow or whatever it is. And so this is what I ended up with right here. This is how many seconds on average it will take for me to collect the materials necessary to fire the gun or the crossbow or the bow one time. And it turns out if you go with these green ones right here, it's a very good value. In fact, it will be good damage output, it will be a good value, and it will take a relatively short period of time in order to craft the materials necessary to keep using it. And so I was able to go around and use guns. Not all of them. Some of them were definitely not worth it, but I was able to make a good informed decision on which guns or what bullets I should have in order to play the game. And I figured I can take that and apply it to Fortnite Save the World. This is the loadout that I have to conduct this experiment. So I wanted to have the most consistent baseline for comparison. So I went with the following loadout. I went with Pathfinder Jess for the commander. I also have Fossil Selfie, Parasaur Jess, Archaeologist, Fireflower Eagle Eye, and Cottontail Eagle Eye. The last two is just for defense and running around and evading enemies, so I can continuously be harvesting. And I also have the team perk of Blast from the Past. The gadgets, I have Stationary Hover Turret and Adrenaline Rush. You might notice that this is not at all an efficient loadout for harvesting. You usually want to use Clip or Archaeologist or something. This is for sure not the loadout to go with if you want to go for the maximum amount of ingredients for farming. Because normally you want to use Clip as the commander so you can get 100% chance of dropping extra materials. But the purpose of this loadout was to always be harvesting nonstop as much as possible and without having to rely on Outlander's anti-material charge, because in some situations that could have skewed the numbers a lot. A lot of the farming took place indoors, and I had to go searching through furniture and electronics first. And during this time, while I'm searching, the anti-material charge, every second, it's not being used. And the energy stays full, which would not have been efficient and would have been very wasteful if I was entirely depending on anti-material charge. So the method, in order to make this comparison on which traps are expensive and which ones are not, and actually be able to measure how much, I needed to list every trap, I needed to list every ingredient of every trap, then emptied out my backpack. I went to each of the PL 140 zones, and I kept track of the time that it took me to farm each area. I added all that together, and I then recycled everything that I collected. And then at the end, I took inventory of all the items that I collected. Each of the maps took 1 to 2 hours to farm, sometimes a little bit more. I would just go back in there a couple times and try to make sure I was getting an accurate representation of what that zone offers. With the total farming time, it was 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 25 seconds, which is 52,345 seconds. I looked it up. So when you divide the total of number of seconds that it took to collect everything, that is the total number of seconds. So everything that I collected has a value. The money dollar amount has a value of 52,345 seconds total for everything that I collected. With all that put together, this is the spreadsheet that I came up with. This took a lot more time and energy than I would like to admit, but here it is. This is the total amount of time that it took for each of the zones right here. Tropical zone, forest, foothills, etc., etc., etc. I noted here how long it took for me to do each one. So this one took 1 hour and 51 minutes total. This one is 1 hour 26 minutes, etc. And during that time, afterwards, if I found active power cells, I noted the quantity here. Like for example, for this run, I found 3 active power cells and 69 resin, nice, and 24 bacon, etc., etc. And so yeah, the total ended up being 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 25 seconds. The colors right here indicate this column right here. This indicates how expensive an item is compared to others. So an active power cell is 1,745 seconds. That's what the price tag is. It's very expensive. It is the most expensive ingredient. When you look at rough ore though, it is the cheapest. It is 4 seconds. So that means on average, I found one rough ore every 4 seconds. The really important part about this though is that your results will most likely vary a lot from the actual cost of what we're going over right now. Meaning, if it says 4 seconds here, you're gonna find it in like 1 second. If it says right here that it's gonna take you 19 seconds to find tier 5 carved twine, it's actually gonna take you like 3, maybe. You know, it's gonna be a lot better than this because my setup was shitty, but on purpose. It's not so that I can get as much materials as possible as quickly as possible. It's so that I can get a accurate, constant, reliable comparison between each of these materials across all the zones. So whatever you see here, assume that for you, it's going to be a lot better. It's not going to be as bad as this. Just keep that in mind. The point of this isn't to tell you that a certain trap will take exactly this many seconds in order to craft or anything like that, but it's to get an accurate baseline cost of materials and traps so we can compare with other materials and other traps. So whatever time cost we'll show you here, just assume that when you go farming, it won't take you nearly as long as it does in this video to make each trap. So don't let this scare you or anything like that. But you will get a good comparison on how expensive a trap is compared to other traps. And that also applies to crafting ingredients as well. This row here, left to right, shows how much materials I got in each zone compared to other zones. This isn't as important, but I just wanted to go over this real quick too. In this red area, when I went to the forest area, it was really difficult for me to find active power cells. But when I went to go look for carved twine, I found a lot of carved twine very rapidly compared to other zones. That's what these colors mean. These are all compared to each other the exact same type. On the left side right here is an average of everything. So after 14 hours of data collection, I like to think that this is pretty solid. This is approximately how rare something is compared to something else. So adhesive resin is actually about the same value as batteries, which is pretty surprising. You would think adhesive resin isn't that important, and they may or may not be important, but when you talk about how rare it is or how long it'll take for you to find one, this shows that batteries are about the same rarity as adhesive resin. Nuts and bolts are very, very cheap. That's not too surprising. You end up with a lot of them. And shadow shard crystals are harder to get. Crystal is actually easier to get than tier 4 crystal, which kind of makes sense because you're at a higher level area. So, you know, for the most part, that checks out. There are exceptions, I think, but that for the most part, it checks out. Now that we take all this data, we assigned approximately how many seconds worth of value each of the materials are. So bacon is worth 167 seconds. Battery is 91 seconds approximately. Bright core ore is about 220 seconds. Now that we have a value of each of the crafting ingredients, now we can take the traps and plug this in to get the value of traps, which I have over here. So on the left side here is still the same crafting ingredients. I just put it here because I thought it would be easier than going back and forth and comparing. So anti-air traps all the way to wooden floor spikes. I went and plugged in every single ingredient that it requires in order to craft. Say anti-air traps need nuts and bolts, they need planks, and they need quartz crystals. I also put in that it requires 6 nuts and bolts, 3 planks, and 1 quartz crystal in order to make it. So with this equation, this right here automatically multiplies the cost of nuts and bolts, which right here is 9 seconds, and it multiplies that by 6 to make it whole numbers. I have it here as 53. For the nuts and bolts, in order to make 1 anti-air trap, it takes about 53 seconds of searching in order to end up with 53 nuts and bolts. And for planks, it's 15 seconds. and quartz crystal is 93. So the most expensive part about this is 93 seconds worth of quartz crystal. When you add that all together, you get 161 seconds total is the cost, or 2 minutes and 41 seconds of harvesting time, which is actually pretty good when you compare it with other traps. This actually shows that there are 5 distinct groups of cost. I excluded the healing pad and player jump pad and the cozy campfire and the booster pad. Booster pads, player jump pads, is absolutely one of the cheapest things you can get. It takes 23 seconds. It's probably going to take you like way less than that. It's almost for free. It is crazy. The nuts and bolts and planks are the only things that they require. So they're very, very cheap, because nuts and bolts and planks, I think, are the cheapest thing in the entire game. Yeah, rough ore and planks and nuts and bolts are the 3 cheapest things in the game. So it makes sense that it's really easy to make these pads. Healing pads are like terrifyingly expensive. It's actually the most expensive thing in the game, which I was not expecting. We'll go over that in a second, but basically, if you're not really sure what you're going to put here and you're just, I'll just put down a healing pad, you might go broke. So be careful. One of the cheapest things that you can get was a wall launcher and also floor launcher, which was very unexpected. I thought the cheapest thing was going to be something else, but no. The cheapest trap you can make is a floor launcher or a wall launcher, which is crazy. That alone shows that I've been doing this wrong this whole time. See, the wall spikes and wooden floor spikes, they cost 128 seconds, which is 2 minutes and 8 seconds, versus 97. So it's instead of 128, wall launcher is 97. It's way cheaper. It's way cheaper. That's common knowledge, right? You think that wooden floor spikes are the cheapest thing ever. That's why everyone spams it all over the ground and you don't really worry about it. It's not a big deal, right? It is a big deal. It's a very big deal, because wall launchers and floor launchers are cheaper, considerably cheaper. Why this matters? You might want to end up using wall launchers instead of wall spikes. So a lot of times, say like retrieve the data or something, if you want extra defense on the inside of the wall, and A1 talked about this in his trap video recently too, you can put in a trap, like a wooden wall trap, wall spikes, and on the perk you can put it as self-repairing or HP increase, whichever. I usually do the self-repairing perk. That way, on the outside, you have a trap like wall darts or something that's increasing the HP, and on the inside, you can be auto-repairing, and you can double up on that. You can put traps on both sides, and you can benefit from both of the perks. You just can't stack it. You can't have both repairing and both HP increase, but you can have one of them HP increase and one of them being self-repairing. I have been using wall spikes for the inside part this whole time. This shows I've been doing it wrong. This shows that I should just have a separate schematic for wall launchers that has the self-repairing perk on it, and just slap that on instead of having wall spikes. I would have saved a lot more farming time if I did that every single time. It just occurred to me, the difference is like 30 seconds. Even just having 10 of this, that's 5 minutes of difference. That just one error, that one difference in selection, just by putting 10 of them, you just created yourself 5 extra minutes of farming. Again, it's not exactly going to be 5 minutes because your results are going to vary, but in this comparison, when you're comparing the two, the value difference is huge, absolutely huge. That's just one example of how this might change the way you select traps in different situations to save you time. So I kind of put like a tier list on this, on how cheap and effective and good value these are. These have nothing to do with total damage output or DPS or anything like that. This is strictly compared to other traps, how cheap or how expensive is it? The best tier is going to be floor launchers and wall launchers. By far, it is a very, very good deal. Very, very good value. The next category is going to be wall spikes, and wooden floor spikes at 128 seconds, or 2 minutes and 8 seconds, 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So wall spikes and wooden floor spikes, second cheapest, as in second best value. Good bang for your buck. In order to craft it, it requires very little effort. Very good value. This is 4-star. The 3-star ones are very interesting. And these are the ones that I think we use most of the time. Anti-air trap, broadside, ceiling drop trap, retractable floor spikes, and wall darts. They're all in the same category. They're all around 161 seconds, 2 minutes and 41 seconds of harvesting time, right around there. Those are like the main ones that we use, right? Those are like the main traps that we use. And it's kind of crazy of how much cheaper wall launchers are and floor launchers are. Like, they're so much cheaper. They're like almost half the cost. So if you have a chance of launching husks off of cliffs using launchers, it may be a very, very good value. It's a crazy good value. And if you're not really sure which traps you're going to place on the ground, if you're ever like, I don't know if I should place retractable floor spikes or a floor launcher, either one's going to work, I don't really care, you can choose a floor launcher. If it doesn't matter, it will be the far cheaper option. From here, it gets kind of scarier. So those are the tier 3s. It's like the middle ground. It's not that crazy expensive. It's not the cheapest, but it's not that bad. So now we go to the 2-star, the ceiling electric field, the ceiling zapper, the defender post, which was absolutely shocking for me. I was not expecting that. Flame grill floor trap, the floor freeze trap, sound wall, tar pit, wall dynamo, and wall lights. So what's kind of scary about that, the difference between the 3-star and the 2-star is huge. Between 4 and 3, not so much, but like between 3 and 2 is huge. So the ceiling electric field, 314 seconds versus ceiling drop trap is 162. So ceiling electric field is twice as expensive. 5 minutes of harvesting per 5 minutes. It is an insanely expensive trap compared to ceiling drop trap. And it looks like the reason why it's so expensive compared to the 3-star traps looks like it's entirely right here. And that is, not surprisingly, batteries. The cost of batteries is pretty expensive. So even though it only requires 2, that alone is 181 seconds. So the 2 batteries that it needs to make is already more expensive than the ceiling drop trap entirely. And the biggest what the fuck out of this whole thing for me has been the defender post. That I take that back. It's the second most biggest what the fuck in this whole thing. But I was always under the impression that defender posts are cheap. That's what all the videos say. If they're cheap, don't worry about it. Don't feel so bad about using them. Just make a bunch, use it. It's not a big deal. Not according to this. So it takes 332 seconds in order to craft one defender post, which is just unbelievable. It's twice as expensive as a broadside. Defender posts are one of those things where if you're gonna need it, you're gonna need it. So you're gonna have to do it anyway. But again, just so you know, 332 seconds. That's a lot. And it looks like one of the biggest reasons is because of the bacon. Bacon is just expensive. 167 seconds. Is that right? Hold on. Let me just double. Yeah, 167 seconds on average. Yeah. Thunder Route 99 was very good. And also Ghost Town was very good for bacon, by the way. Bacon is expensive. And so the cost of bacon is like about half of it. Just one bacon. And the planks isn't that bad. All the planks put together is just 20 seconds. Nuts and bolts, 71. That's a lot, but I mean, you need 8 nuts and bolts for it. And the duct tape. Yeah, we'll talk about duct tape in a second, but duct tape alone is 74 seconds. It's more than a minute on average to find just one. In that category, we got the flame grill, the floor freeze trap, and the sound wall tar pit. Tar pit I can understand. it's 305 seconds. That's pretty expensive, but I can understand that. Carpet's like, it's very, very important. It's like the last hope of stopping charging smashers. You know, I can understand that part. But sound walls and wall lights being that expensive, like the fact that wall lights and sound walls are twice as expensive as broadsides is kind of crazy to me. Because, you know, broadsides and wall darts are so great, but they're twice as expensive. It's pretty crazy. Wall dynamo being 294 seconds that's pretty surprising too. Ceiling electric field and wall dynamo is the same cost. Kind of makes you think. You're like, should I put a wall dynamo here or should I put a broadside here? Yeah, and the crazy part is the wall darts, right? Wall darts is 162 seconds. Wall dynamo is 294. It's like, I don't know when I would actually, you know what? There is a use case. I made a stairs video the other day, and there is a situation where you have to have a wall dynamo. It will not work with a wall darts. There was a situation like that. I can think of one situation that's like that. Also, there are some trap situations where you need a one high wall. And so the only thing you can really put there is a wall dynamo. So I can see that. But it's like, if you're not sure, should I put a wall darts or should I put wall dynamo? It sounds like every single time you're supposed to put a wall darts. If either one is okay, then choosing wall darts will be a very good value. You'll be saving yourself 2 to 3 minutes every single time of your life just by making that selection for yourself, that's a lot. That's a lot. And so we come to the ceiling gas trap, which is a monstrous 676 seconds. It's in a league on its own. It's twice as expensive as ceiling electric field, which is twice as expensive as broadside. It's 4 times as expensive as a broadside. It's a ceiling gas trap costs 4 times as much as a ceiling drop trap. Let that sink in. I thought that was some sort of error at first, but no, this was pretty apparent from early on in the data collection. But the more we collected the data, the more certain it became. And what it comes down to is fibrous herbs. In fact, now we talk about the healing pad actually being even more expensive, 838 seconds. Just compared to a broadside's 172, healing pad is 838. Why? And the reason is fibrous herbs and flower petals. They're one of the most expensive things in the game. Why? Like that doesn't sound right. I myself have a lot of fibrous herbs and a lot of flower petals that are just sitting there. I don't run out of it. If you have way too much of fibrous herbs, then they don't seem rare at all, right? Which is absolutely valid. Of course not. It's not. But even if you have a stack, like stacks of fibrous herbs or flower petals that you never use in your inventory, right? And the value shown here seems completely disconnected from that reality. But you have to understand that the price tag of materials that we've shown here, the value of each materials that we have comparing right here, it's purely applicable when you're considering if you were to start harvesting right now. If you have nothing, and if you're going to start from 0 right now, this is what you're going to end up with. Statistically speaking, if you run into a mission, if you go into a zone, statistically, you will have way more trees and rocks and collect planks and rough ore way more before you find your first or second set of flowers. That's what it comes down to. In fact, what that actually means though, is if you have a huge supply of unused fibrous herbs or flower petals, it means that you may be sitting on a gold mine. It's wasted opportunity that you can take advantage of right now. You can benefit a lot if you just craft shit with it. For example, healing pads and especially ceiling gas traps. you know? And I know I said that, yeah, this thing is really, really, really expensive. But if you're in a situation where you have all the materials and you're not using it, that's also waste. That's opportunity cost. You had the opportunity to use that and turn that into something else and actually consume that trap and use it so that you didn't have to use some other trap. You're saving yourself time, a lot of time. And you can benefit a lot if you just make ceiling gas traps with them instead of letting other materials just sit and be wasted. Because all it really takes is nuts and bolts, fibrous herbs, oxidized mineral powder, and bacon. And yes, bacon is not cheap. It's not for free. But again, if you have a million fibrous herbs just sitting there, nuts and bolts isn't that bad. And oxidized mineral powder is one of the cheapest things, believe it or not, in the game. So you should use them. And again, the reason why it seems like it's expensive is because you use it all the time. We're making selections without really understanding or getting an overview because the game doesn't have that kind of feature built into it. We actually have to go through something like this to figure out how much something is worth. So usually, probably out of habit, we tend to use up oxidized mineral powders or efficient mechanical parts all the time. So that's why we don't have enough of those. But it turns out you can get them pretty rapidly all the time compared to other materials like, which is very crazy, but flower petals. So in this situation, just try to use them more. Flower petals, again, cozy campfire, and healing pads. When you look at the gas trap, when you put everything together, it costs 11 minutes and 14 seconds of your life to farm the materials for just one trap. So when you compare that to ceiling drop trap at 2 minutes and 42 seconds, is the gas trap 4 times as better? The ceiling gas trap isn't 4 times as deadly and effective as a ceiling drop trap. This just shows that it is 4 times as expensive if you were to be consuming all the materials equally and you have a choice on what to use. This might help you make a more informed decision than before. This also shows that certain items may actually be far more valuable than you might think. For example, you might have thought that a rubber duck containing duct tape wasn't that worth of a time for you to stop and harvest if you're busy. But maybe things will be a little bit different next time. Let me tell you why. And this is the section about duct tapes. It has a value of 74 seconds on average. It's actually almost 15 times more expensive than plank, planks is 5, which is pretty crazy. I thought I run out of planks all the time, but that's because I'm using it all the time, not because they're rare. And you usually get multiple duct tape from one rubber duck, right? It's like 2 at least. Some of them give more. So it's even a bigger deal when comparing to the cost of actually crafting the duct tape. It's even worse. So here's a really scary thing that we found out here. Again, so the cost of the duct tape is 74 seconds. If you find one in the wild, you'll find one on average once every 74 seconds in this setup. But if you were to spend the fibrous herbs and adhesive resin in order to craft the duct tape from scratch, it actually is a complete ripoff. It's a total ripoff. So fibrous herbs cost 80 seconds each, right? It costs 80 seconds each. Duct tape costs 74 for the whole thing, but each fibrous herbs costs 80 seconds each, and you need 3 of those plus adhesive resin, which is 85 seconds, right? So instead of a duct tape costing you 74 seconds, if you craft it, it actually costs 324 seconds, which is over 4 times as expensive. That's nuts. That is absolutely crazy. So what that shows is, if you can, it's a very good value to try to collect the duct tape from rubber ducks. If you do come across them, just stop what you're doing, just collect it if possible, because it can save you a lot of harvesting time in the future compared to you having to just craft duct tape instead. And so, with all this said, what's the specialist verdict? So, essentially we've been lied to by the damage numbers and been making choices that hit the actual farming time cost of each of the traps. Yes, of course, how much damage each of the traps can do is very important. Placement is important. A lot of times you don't have a choice. There's a wall here. You need to place this type of trap, and you don't really have a say in it. You just have to do it, so you do it anyway. But a lot of times you can swap them out and you just kind of put down whatever you like. And that's when this really matters, because we've been making choices on what to build, usually based on the DPS alone, but we should also be building based on the economic burden of your choices. This spreadsheet right now has the price tag for every item in the game. And this isn't to say that one trap is better than the other, but if we're in a situation where we don't know how much you get paid an hour, for example, right? Or you don't know how much money you have in your bank account, and you don't know how much item costs when you buy something, of course you're going to end up being broke, like me. I hope that with this information, it can help you make better decisions, more informed decisions, before committing to spending your money on each trap. There we go. I wanted to make a bunch of traps and I was always running out of it, and you know, it felt like every time I did a mission, I had to go do a separate mission just to go get more material so I can craft later on. And, you know, it was eating into my fun. Just having to harvest all the time was disruptive. It wasn't fun, you know. I wanted to see if there's a way that I can make better choices so that I don't run out of materials. And you know, just by this, I think I can. I think it's changed things a lot for me. Both that if I'm not really sure what to place, I'm not going to use a ceiling gas trap. But if I have a lot of materials left over, I absolutely should craft them into ceiling gas traps so I can actually use them. Maybe if I have a lot of gas traps that are just left over, then I can use it instead of a drop trap sometimes, for example, sometimes. And then maybe it will do the job and I will save the money time that I would have used it on a different trap or something like that. Especially the whole inside the wall, I'll use a wall launcher instead of wall spikes because it's going to be cheaper. That definitely is going to be a thing. So yeah, I guess I need to go get another schematic just for that. But yeah, and I hope you guys like the whole the star tier list and everything too. Okay. I probably should have done this from the beginning. Now that I think about it, whoops, I probably should have done that. But here it is. So the best value right here, the best tier is floor launcher and wall launcher, good values. And then comes 4-star is wall spikes and wooden floor spikes. And then lots in the 3 category here: anti-air trap, broadside, ceiling drop trap, retractable floor spikes, and wall darts. And then we have the 2 stars, lots of 2 stars right here, almost like the rest. The ceiling electric field, ceiling zapper, defender post, flame grill, floor trap, floor freeze trap, sound wall, tar pit, wall dynamo, wall lights. They're like all the same price. And then the most expensive one is the ceiling gas trap, which is, again, really funny because I think I have a lot of those left over. I want to say thank you to Mava, my friend, for kind of inspiring me to do this. I made the whole Ark Survival Evolved spreadsheet a very long time ago, and I was thinking about doing something like this for Fortnite Save the World, and she kind of encouraged me to do this, and I'm glad that I did because I think it's going to be helpful for me too. I hope you found this interesting. I know, like, you know, there's plenty of videos on which traps are better. This is not at all a video on like which traps are better at all. Each trap is a tool. You need to make sure that you use the proper tool for the right job. And there's plenty of videos out there on how to use traps, where to place them, you know, all that stuff. But it's just, I have never seen a video on what the price of each of the traps are. Sure, you know what the materials are, but how expensive is that exactly? And this will show you how expensive something is. So yeah, I think that does it. I think I covered everything. So I guess thank you very much for watching. I hope you found some of this useful, or at least interesting, I guess. And if there was one thing in here somehow that was like, you know, even a little bit useful, I'd be happy. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know. I absolutely know what I'm talking about. No, I don't, but you know, actually I do. Trust me, because I'm a founder. And yeah, I think that will do it. For those of you guys that don't know, I just finally figured out how to play the game back in like January, and so I'm genuinely trying to figure out the game mechanics, because I think that process is really fun, and that's why I'm doing this. So yeah, I hope that was useful, and I think that'll do it. So thank you very much for watching. And yeah, I like it. Thank you very much, Speed Goober. I appreciate it. I think that will be it. Thank you very much for watching. And I think that will do it. So let me put my finger over the button properly so I can get this done right. I'm your host, King Dog Speed, and I'll see you next time. Push the button, and it worked this time. There we go. Hey.